Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are so glad to see everyone here. I should say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, based on where you're from and where you're coming in from. This is Elders Action Network National Gathering. Crystal, could you put me on screen, please? Thank you so much. Welcome again. And what we are doing today is coming together as a community all in one place. And we do this every year. And as people are coming in, I see they're already putting in where they are located. So I wish all of you would put in your city and your state, or your city and your country, because we're having some people from other countries here. And as you come in, put in 1 or 2 words that would describe how you're feeling today. What's inside you this Friday, the second day of autumn, and share with each other what's inside you. Oh, Kevin, I'm feeling a lot of gratitude and hope for our future. Amy from Pacifica is grateful as well. And Nancy from Redwood City, hopeful. Oh. And Debbie from Palo Alto. Oh, and connected to all of you, says Anne. Yes. Oh, and glad to be here and see all of your faces, says Lynn. And Jim, hello everyone from Colorado. And happy to be here again. Hope and excitement from Sherry that our movement is going to save our democracy and planet. Whoa. Becca is so excited this year. Oh, and Lane from New Orleans, looking forward to connecting with all of you. And Aletta, I hope I pronounced it that right. Oh, Mike from San Mateo, excited to be in the community with you all. I hope you're able to see the chat and read along and look with me. It's great to see everyone. And oh, this is a special day, Libby says. We are one. Woo. Gratitude, delight, tired. Yes, Meg, I can understand. It's been a busy year we've been together. And also look around after you've put your feelings into the chat and see the faces of all of this, of all of us in this community. Ken, living in unceded Abenaki land, great to be with all of you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
More gratitude. Yes. Glad to be with all you, Debbie. Yeah, you know, we're all in our meetings separate during the year, or a webinar or this, and you know, we don't really have a chance where we all just to get together in one place. This is really our time. And so I'm going to get started now, again, with the National Gathering. And I'm Terry Whitehair, and I'm in San Mateo, California. And I'm the coordinator of the National Gatherings. And I also co-coordinate the Elders for Social Justice action team. And I'm excited because the months that we've spent to put this together, I am so excited to what we are offering you today and for you to experience what it is that we are doing. But I am a co-host. And so I want to bring on the other host for today, and that's Jeff Ainscough. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Terry. Thanks very much. I also live in Silicon Valley. I live in Sunnyvale, California. I've been involved in the Elders Action Network since its beginning. And I also facilitate the book group, which we meet every 2 weeks and discuss the latest book. So I'm looking forward to hosting the second half of this program, and I'll see you then.
Great, Jeff. Thank you. It's been wonderful working with you. Thank you. And like he said, he'll be come in on the second half of the program. Well, when I was thinking about what I would say in the opening for our gathering, I went back and thought about a year ago this September when we had our other national gathering. And our theme at that time was, why elders, why now? And then I thought about the packed full year we have had since then in the actions and the things that we have put together and done together. And I thought to myself, we answered that question big time. And the way we answered it is through our actions and what we did. So as we're together, I want to just give you some highlights of what you have done this year. And these are just highlights. It's not everything, but it is a lot. So first of all, we put together two highly a big attendance, I'd say, highly attended conversations. The first one with Paul Hawken on regeneration. And then the second one was a conversation with George Monbiot, a journalist and environmental advocate. And it was based on his column in The Guardian. And it was, capitalism is killing us. It's time to stop buying into our own destruction. And boy, that opened our eyes, a lot of our eyes, to what this system, economic system, has done to the planet. And yet some of us said, thank goodness you're talking about capitalism, because I've been talking about that and complaining for years. We have also put together 2 or 3 town hall sound democracy webinars. And the one most recently, we had a conversation with the former Congressman Dennis Kucinich and our EIN board member and his longtime Congress scheduler, Amy Vosbrink. And that particular town hall inspired many of us to join that effort. And we have also put together several campaigns. One of the campaigns, which actually started in January, is Get Out the Vote campaign. And they are in 5 states. We are in 5 states with voting right teams that are actively supporting access to registration and voting. We're in Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Texas, and Wisconsin. And boy, we have gone big time in social media in getting that vote out. Yeah, elders on social media. We've been doing it big time. Most recently, the campaign around Follow the Money, which did come out of the George Monbiot conversation. And we looked at money, and then we started concentrating on our investments as elders and the money and where it is going. So we put together with the Sunrise Project a Fix My Funds webinar where we're helping and supporting elders to demand clean energy investments and divestment from fossil fuels and deforestation. And we've been partnering with Third Act, and there have been several throughout the year mentions of Elders Action Network in magazines. Then, of course, the other campaign in plastics and the plastic crisis. Been holding monthly meetings, educating ourselves about the crisis, about the plastics in the ocean, way down deep in the ocean, in the streams, in the pollution in the land, and the plastics inside of us. And we haven't just been educating, we've been acting. In fact, several of us have done marches onto our local grocery stores and to our clothes stores, carrying the plastics with us that we have accumulated at those stores and demanding that they stop using the plastics. And then, of course, Elders for Climate Action and Elders Action Network both have monthly newsletters. And those letters have been packed full of actions that we as elders can take instantaneously with the click of our mouse. So we and you and I have done a lot, and that's why our theme today is Elders Acting Now. We have made a huge impact and recognize that for what we have done. The other thing I want to mention is that there is a global climate strike happening right now today, September 23rd. It's being put on and sponsored by Fridays for Future, and that link will be in our chat. So we stand in solidarity with those strikers today and where there are. And after this meeting, you can go on to the website and see the various cities and countries that they are in. So to start us off, the first person I want to bring on is Catherine Scravo. She is a volunteer with our community, and you may recognize her from the Welcome TEAN workshops that we put together. And we've asked her to come and talk about elders in our place. And so welcome, Catherine.
Thank you, Terry. And good morning, everybody. I'm really pleased to see everyone this morning. And I just want to say personally, I'm so proud to be working with Elders Action Network. I want to begin today by saying something pretty obvious, and that is we're living in an unprecedented time of historical change. Most of us here today are part of the largest growing demographic in the history of the world. That's pretty amazing. Did you know that approximately 10,000 people turn 65 every day, and that many of us are living well into our 90s and 100s? According to gerontologist and futurist Ken Dykewald, at no other time in history has such a large group of people existed within a social structure where there's no obligations to the group. In other words, after retirement, there is nothing expected of us as we age. Dykewald goes on to suggest maybe it's time we rethink that social contract. In 2020, a survey of 6,000 people across all age groups throughout North America was conducted to assess what is needed for a successful retirement. What was surprising to learn was that 1/3 of those people that were identified as being newly retired also reported that they did not feel that they had any defined purpose going forward. That's something serious to think about. In these unprecedented historical times, in part because of our numbers and in part because of our longer lifespans, we now have the ability to redefine what aging means and to change the cultural narrative as to what it means to be an elder in the 21st century. As a collective, there are many ways to do this. Working on relevant issues that have social importance, like we do in the Elder Action Network, is one significant pathway to living to a purposeful life. Many years ago, playwright George Bernard Shaw reflected on his aging, and he said the following about purpose. "This is the true joy in my life, being used for a purpose, being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making me happy. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community, and as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it what I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. Life is no brief candle to me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I've got a hold of for a moment, and I want to make it burn brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. These are words that can serve as inspiration for us today and always, as we too find our joy in allowing ourselves to be thoroughly used up. Together, as elders acting now, we can be that splendid torch burning brightly, making the difference. Together, we can be the change. Thank you.
Oh, Catherine, thank you. You're always a very thoughtful voice in our meetings, and I appreciate that. And what really speaks to me is the joy, when you talked about the joy of giving all. That was wonderful. Thank you. And now what we have been waiting for, our keynote speaker, Judge LaDoris Cordell. But we want to bring on one person who knows LaDoris very well, and she's also on the board of directors for Elders Action Network. We want Debbie Mytels to come on and introduce Judge LaDoris Cordell. Welcome, Debbie.
Thanks very much, Terry. It's great to be a part of this wonderful gathering this morning. I'm a member of the board of Elders Action Network, and we're delighted today to present our keynote speaker, the Honorable Judge LaDoris Cordell, whose life includes many firsts and many accomplishments. LaDoris grew up in the Philadelphia area, and she graduated from Antioch College in 1971, heading out to Stanford Law, where she earned her law degree. As a Black woman in the 70s, it was not easy for her to land a corporate job, but rather than get discouraged, she opened her own private practice in East Palo Alto, a predominantly Black small community located across the county line from Stanford and Palo Alto, which meant that the wealthier community of Palo Alto did not have to share its tax revenue with East Palo Alto's community of color. That's the world we live in, folks. So recognizing the importance, however, of LaDoris's work in this community that was challenged by economics and racism, in 1976, Stanford invited her to serve as assistant dean for student affairs at the law school. And there she began working to improve diversity among the incoming law students. I think we know she's made a difference there. LaDoris then began serving as a part-time municipal court judge in 1980, and her first case involved a lawsuit between two Black women. The dispute was over whether the defendant should be paid for a poorly done job of styling the other's hair. Well, LaDoris's personal experience with having her own hair done in cornrows really helped both parties to the case come to a fair decision. And while this wasn't perhaps the most significant case in LaDoris's career, it illustrates the importance of having diversity among judges. Well, after that, in a couple of years, LaDoris became the first permanent Black female judge in Northern California. And in 1988, she was elected to the Santa Clara County Superior Court, where she served for 13 years. Well, I first met LaDoris, it was in a friend's living room, and she told us why she was running for the Palo Alto City Council. And I was really pleased to be able to be a precinct walker for her in that. Well, during her 4 years serving our city, she was a strong voice for social justice and putting more funds towards such efforts. Participating in city leadership for a term led to LaDoris's next role as the independent police auditor for San Jose, a Bay Area city of more than 1 million people. Actually, it's the 10th largest in the US and has a diverse population from all over the world. Since retiring from San Jose, though, Dolores has not been sitting on her hands. In fact, she's been using her hands, sharing her skills as a cartoonist and a concert pianist with public performances in our community and contributing the proceeds to support local nonprofits. Most recently, she's written a memoir, a book entitled Her Honor, My Life on the Bench, What Works, What's Broken, and How to Change It. The EAN book group has just read it. And now we will get a taste of what LaDoris shared there in her book from her long and significant career. Let's welcome Her Honor, Judge LaDoris Cordell.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you, Terry, Jeff, all of you who are involved in planning this program today. Thank you, Crystal, for assisting me in terms of the technology. And I was just first introduced to your organization through Debbie. And I'm just delighted, and thank you, Debbie, for recommending that I speak to everyone today. I also saw a name pop up in the chat, and it's somebody I know, Amy Vosbrink, and that's somebody I haven't seen for a long time. So hi to Amy, and thank you for being a part of this. I'm not surprised that you are. So thank you. I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about your theme today, the activism. The Oxford Dictionary defines activism as the policy or action of using vigorous campaigning to bring about political or social change. So if we can go to the first image. Here's how others define it. So we'll go to next image. And that was, okay. We'll start with Maya Angelou. That's fine. This is the book, by the way, that Debbie was talking about, and I hope that you all will have an opportunity to read it. We go to next image. Now, this is how other individuals define activism. Maya Angelou, according to her, activism means picking up the battle and making it a better world just where you are. Next image. Academic and political activist Angela Davis says activism means no longer accepting the things we cannot change and changing the things we cannot accept. Next image. The late, great John Lewis, civil rights leader, congressman, described activism like this: when you see something that is not just, not fair, or not right, you have to do something. You have to say something. Make a little noise. It's time for us to get into good trouble, necessary trouble. Next image. Singer and activist Joan Baez says that activism is the antidote to despair. Next image. My favorite definition is from Alice Walker, poet, author, and social activist, who says, activism is our rent for living on the planet. Elders acting now, that's your theme for this conference, a theme that's not only timely, but one that is sorely needed. Recent decisions this summer from the 6 conservative U.S. Supreme Court justices, I call them the Gang of 6, have let us know that if ever there was a time for elder activism, it is now. And quite frankly, I don't know how the 6 of them sleep at night. They have turned their backs on the effort to stop climate change by limiting the power of the Environmental Protection Agency. They have blood on their hands by allowing anyone 18 years of age or older to own and carry guns in public. They have handed control over the reproductive rights of women to the whim of male-dominated state legislatures, and they will this fall, next month, likely permit the states to overrule the results of federal elections. It is on us, elders acting now, to step up and make some good and necessary trouble. You know, it's so frustrating to watch this country of ours and other nations tilt toward and embrace authoritarianism. So how in the world can a network of elders, we old and wise senior citizens, how can we turn the tide? How do we make good and necessary trouble? Well, the answer lies in our nations and our personal histories, because if we know from whence we have come, we can know how to move forward. And let me explain. Next image. Dolly, my great-grandmother, and Easter, her mother, my maternal great-great-grandmother, both mother and daughter, were among the enslaved and were eventually freed with Lincoln's signing of the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. After the Civil War, my great-grandmother and great-great-grandmother and their families settled in Weldon, North Carolina, where my mother and her siblings were born. Dolly and her mother Easter were pieces of property who belonged to a white slave owner. They had no say over their reproductive rights. They had no right to vote. They had no right to an education. They had no right to practice the religion of their choice. And yet, here I sit today, their great-great-granddaughter, who was for 20 years a state court judge in California. So my point is that even though it took us a while, there were enough good people in this country who had the courage to protest, to fast, to demonstrate, to pass laws and to render court decisions that ended enslavement and then opened the doors of opportunity to women, people of color, the disabled, and the LGBTQ communities. So this is why I remain ever hopeful about the future of this country. So don't get me wrong now. I'm not some naive Pollyanna-ish person who sees the world through rose-colored glasses, quite the contrary. You see, I believe that there are just two kinds of people in the world. There are the bystanders and then there are upstanders. Bystanders are the people who sit by or stand by on the sidelines. And when injustice raises its ugly head, they stand by. They throw up their hands, they do nothing, they sigh, they complain, and they hope for someone to come along to do something. The upstander speaks up. The upstander stands up, sings up, lawyers up for justice. Upstanders are ordinary people like you and me who speak up even when we are afraid, even when it is far easier to simply remain silent. Next image. King Christian X of Denmark was an upstander. When the Nazis during World War II invaded his country, Denmark, they ordered all the Jews to sew yellow stars onto their coats and their jackets so that they could be readily identified, then rounded up and sent off to camps, concentration camps, to be killed. King Christian quietly and bravely sewed a yellow star on his clothing. Next image. Then all of the citizens of Denmark, Jews and non-Jews, Christians, followed his lead and sewed yellow stars on their clothing. So the result was that the Nazis could not distinguish who were Jews and who were not. So the Nazis left Denmark in frustration. By quietly picking up a needle and thread, King Christian X became an upstander who helped save the lives of thousands of Jews in his country. Next image. One of the greatest upstanders was Cesar Chavez, who stood up for farm workers, starting right here in California. Next image. He organized the United Farm Workers Union, frequently with another upstander in terms of LaDoris Huerta. Cesar marched, he protested, he fasted until the movement that spread to Texas, Wisconsin, and Ohio succeeded in protecting the rights of farm workers. Next image. Bree Newsom, an African-American woman in her 30s who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, is an upstander. 10 days after a shooting killed 9 Black people at the Emmanuel AME Church in South Carolina, 10 days after that shooting, at 5:30 in the morning on June 27th, 2015, Bree Newsom and her friend Jimmy Tyson, a white guy, went to the Confederate monument right next to the South Carolina State House. Next image. They walked to the 30-foot-high steel flagpole that stood directly behind the monument. After Jimmy helped Bree over a fence, she donned her climbing gear and she began to quickly scale up that pole. Jimmy watched from below, ready to break her fall were she to slip. Well, guards at the State House saw her and began running and shouting at her to come down. Bree ignored them. She reached the top of the flagpole, grabbed the Confederate flag, and unhooked it. She lowered it and herself slowly. And the Confederate flag had been flown by states in the South that supported slavery. And today, some southern states like South Carolina continue to fly the symbol of racial hatred. Next image. As soon as she reached the ground, Bree and Jimmy were arrested. And within an hour, 2 State House workers raised a new Confederate flag. Bree and Jimmy were charged with defacing state property that carried penalties of up to 3 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. Their bail was set at $3,000 each, and their bail was quickly paid by a bail fund, a group of activists that raised more than $150,000 for their defense. Later, when asked about this ordeal, Bree Newsom said, "The retaliation piece was much scarier to me than the arrest. I was even thinking about the possibility of being up on that flagpole. And you never know who might walk by. Quite frankly, I could have been shot." Well, 2 weeks after Bree Newsom scaled that flagpole and removed the flag, the governor, then Nikki Haley, a Republican, signed into law the permanent removal of the Confederate flag from State House grounds. Next image. We all know that Nikki Haley would never have done so without the heroic act of Bree Newsom. Bree became an upstander by simply and bravely climbing a pole. But I warn you all, being an upstander, it's risky business. By standing up for others, you risk being ostracized or shunned, sometimes by those whom you thought were your friends. And believe me, I know of what I speak. In 1994, I incurred the anger of many in the African-American community in San Jose and beyond when I spoke out against a Black woman who had recently been elected to the San Jose City Council. Her name was Kathy Cole. Next image. Here is what was written about Kathy Cole and me in the May 1994 edition of Jet Magazine. Now I'm showing you here what Jet Magazine looks like. It's a national Black publication. This is not the publication in which the article was written, but I just want to give you a sense of what Jet Magazine is. If we could stop share, thank you. So here is what was written in Jet Magazine. This was May 1994. San Jose, California City Councilwoman Kathy Cole recently was removed from office after angering constituents with remarks and gestures which were offensive to Latinos, Asians, and gays. Cole, who represented the Evergreen District in southeastern San Jose for 15 months, became the first council member in the city's history to be voted out of office. A total of 59.2% of voters favored her recall. Cole, 47, whose district, which is approximately 1/3 Asian American and 1/4 Latino, made the remarks last May during an African American leadership conference. The article continues. Cole said that Latinos sought power, quote, like little pit bulls, then tugged at the corner of her eyes to symbolize Asian features and intimated that Asian Americans and gays got special treatment at City Hall. The article concludes, Superior Court Judge LaDoris Cordell, that would be me, a Black official who was outraged by Cole's remarks, brought the closed doors statement to light by publicly reprimanding Cole and providing local media with a videotape of the councilwoman's actions. Now, some in the Black community rose up to defend Kathy Cole and to attack me. To them, I was the problem. And I recall one day after Ms. Cole had been recalled, going to the post office that was next door to the courthouse where I was then presiding. A Black woman, I did not know her, who was furious with me about my role in the takedown of Kathy Cole, accosted me and loudly denounced me for speaking out against a sister. And I told her that anyone who preaches hate is no sister of mine. Still, it hurt to be impugned by my own community. And yes, that was a risk I chose to take. And you know what? I'd do it again in a heartbeat. When apartheid was the law of the land in South Africa, I learned that the California Judges Association, CJA, invested in companies that conducted business in South Africa. I was the first judge to call for the CJA to divest itself of holdings in these companies to protest apartheid. And I recall making this demand at an annual CJA meeting and watching several judges storm out of the meeting, livid with my stance on this issue. But as support for my demand gathered steam, CJA eventually withdrew its investments in companies that continue to do business in South Africa. And we all know that it was the worldwide economic boycott that led to the end of apartheid and freedom for Nelson Mandela. Next image. If we can stop share and go to the next image. Thank you, Crystal. And more recently, in 2020, working with the ACLU of Northern California, I was the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit against my own city, the city of Palo Alto, where I live, demanding that the city remove its residents-only entry restriction to its wonderful nature preserve that was a public park. Next image. As a result of filing that lawsuit, the city council backed down, lifted the restriction. And that public park means just that. They understand now that public means open to the public, where all are invited. And that's where we have what we have today. Next image. Charles Hamilton Houston was a brilliant lawyer. When he started his law practice in 1924, it was he who pioneered the idea of using the Constitution to promote racial justice. The grandson of slaves, Houston was born in Washington, D.C. in 1895, went to Amherst College, and after serving in the Army, attended Harvard Law School, becoming the first Black member of the Harvard Law Review. He was a teacher at Howard Law School and later became its dean. And one of his students at Howard Law School was Thurgood Marshall. Next image. Houston devised the long-range strategy that ultimately led the U.S. Supreme Court in Brown versus Board of Education to declare that segregated public education was unconstitutional. Houston died in 1950, 4 years before the Supreme Court decided Brown and made his vision a reality. Charles Hamilton Houston was fond of saying to his Howard law students, "A lawyer's either a social engineer or a parasite on society." By being social engineers, I think that Houston meant that lawyers should always be about the business of making a difference, of using your legal acumen to make the world a better and more just place. So that could mean being a public interest lawyer, or being a corporate attorney who takes the time to do pro bono work for worthy causes, or being a lawyer in your own practice who volunteers in the community. Or it could mean a retired judge who uses her time to make the criminal legal system more just. After I retired, I used some of my time to make the criminal legal system more just. I'm going to read from you from the very last chapter of my book, just a very short passage. The chapter is entitled, "In My End is My Beginning." If we could stop share here. And in it, I wrote about how a retired judge was able to make the criminal legal system more just. In 2006, I had written an op-ed against California's draconian 3 strikes law for a local newspaper that came to the attention of Montel Williams, host of a popular national television talk show based in New York City. I accepted his invitation to appear on the show, and in September 2006, I went there and talked about my view of the law. The other guests on his show were two Black women whose sister, Kelly Turner, was in her 11th year of a 25-year to life sentence for a third strike, possession of a stolen check, and the amount of $144. When I returned to California and to my job as a vice provost at Stanford University, I couldn't get Kelly's situation out of my head. The injustice of Kelly's life sentence for a $144 third strike was exactly why I was so opposed to the three strikes law. I objected to the law when I was on the bench, but other than trying to soften its blow at sentencing hearings, I hadn't been able to make any meaningful change to it. Now, as a private citizen and no longer muzzled by judicial canons, here was an opportunity for me to do more than write an op-ed. If I couldn't change the law from the inside, I could fight back by getting someone out from under it on the outside. I had no idea that this fight would go on for more than 2 years. In September 2008, I flew to Los Angeles and appeared at the Los Angeles Superior Court, where Kelly had been sentenced to a life sentence. And I appeared with Kelly and also a corporate lawyer who pro bono was the lead counsel. And if you show. So this is the image. The Judge Espinoza, granted our petition to release Kelly. She was resentenced and he ordered her freed. So this is me with the prosecutor who did not oppose our habeas petition. And there is Kelly. You can see her sitting there in her jail outfit. I had seen Kelly once when I went to meet her at the prison in 2006, and this was only the second time I had seen Kelly, and this was at the hearing in the Superior Court. Next image. And this is the attorney, Roy Bartlett, who was a corporate counsel who joined us pro bono to write this habeas petition. And you can see Kelly sitting there. She still has her handcuffs on. And even though I asked that the bailiff that she be unhandcuffed, they declined to do that. Next image. And sitting in the courtroom that day, September 8th, 2008, were Kelly's two sisters who had been on the Montel show, along with some other friends of the family, who was, you can see, are smiling because the judge had just ordered Kelly released. Now, I want you to see next, before we go to the next image, I just want to tell you, this is what freedom looks like. This is 1 year after that hearing. Next image. And there is Kelly in the center, flanked by her two sisters. That is what freedom looks like. And how is Kelly doing today? She lives in Central California. She got married, she got a passport, she's been to Italy, she has a wonderful home, and she recently was given an award by the State Probation Department for her work with children, with juveniles, particularly those in foster care. So let's leave that image up for a while because I find it so fulfilling. This is what freedom looks like and what activism looks like. So I give you these examples of my activism as proof of the many ways in which we all can make good and necessary trouble, among them through litigation, through economic boycotts and sanctions, and running for and holding local and state elective office. We elders, we get it because we have lived long enough to understand the risks and the pitfalls of being upstanders. We all know that systems resist change. Legal institutions, educational institutions, governmental institutions, corporate institutions, all have a way of doing things that work for them, even though they may not work for those impacted by those institutions. One of the most extraordinary women to ever walk this earth, a woman who had no education, was an illiterate, and if she had had the opportunity to get an education, would have been a terrific judge or legislator or teacher or engineer or mathematician, you name it. a woman who faced unimaginable adversity and lived to tell about it. And she said this: every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Well, those words were spoken by Araminta Ross, one of 11 children born into slavery in Maryland in March 1822. She would eventually change her name to, next image, Harriet Tubman. When she was not yet 30, she began her career as an activist. Her reputation for heroism in challenging slavery was already well established when the Civil War broke out in 1861. Legally still enslaved, Tubman risked capture by joining the Union's front lines to defeat Confederate rebels and to win slavery's abolition. She served as a nurse, a relief worker among enslaved refugees, a scout, and a spy. And when it seemed that her work was done, it wasn't. She eventually settled in Auburn, New York, where she established a home for aging and indigent African Americans, many of whom, like her, had little means of support during their last years. And as an elder, she promoted efforts to win voting rights for Black and white women until her death in 1913 at the age of 91. This woman made good trouble on so many fronts. May we, in the spirit of Harriet Tubman, always reach for the stars to change the world. And may we always pay our rent. Next image. I leave you with the word, onward. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you so much, LaDoris. What inspiring stories. I just love that image of Kelly Turner with her arms out and freedom. Yes.
Still
I-
gives me chills. Still
Yeah.
gives me chills.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And thank you for all you've done in your career and the stories you've just shared with us as being an upstander. You're a real hero to so many of us. And
Well, that's what all of you are. The fact that you have joined this organization, you understand that there are issues to be dealt with. You all are upstanders, and that's why I'm so glad to be a part of this. Thank you.
Well, we are so pleased to have you with us. We have some questions for you from the chat and really thoughtful questions. I think one to start with, just reflecting a bit upon your efforts. Someone asked, what strategies do you personally use to keep up your hope and continue the fight for justice when sometimes things seem really stacked against us? What thoughts do you have?
Well, I'm actually terrified about what is happening in this country, the divisiveness. I am terrified about the Supreme Court, where the Gang of Six are disregarding judicial precedent and doing whatever they want because they can, because there are 6 of them. So how do I stay hopeful? I stay hopeful because I think about my great-great-grandmother and great-grandmothers who were the enslaved, who would never, ever want any of us to give up and throw up our hands. We stand on their shoulders and the shoulders of so many others. So I'm always hopeful. That doesn't mean, however, I'm not terrified about what is ahead. So I think that if we look at everything that's happening just in this country, you can almost get paralyzed because there's so much stuff that needs to be dealt with. So what I do, and I suggest this to you all, is find your niche. Find something that you can focus on that will make a difference and make things better. I come from the legal world. So one of the things I did was to write Her Honor, to write this book, to educate people about our legal system, because you can't change things unless you understand what these things are, how they came to be, and how they function. Once you do that, then you can figure out what changes need to be made. So in my book, for example, in the next to last chapter called The Fix, I recommend 10 things that all of us can do to make our legal system more just and fair. So I'm always hopeful, not Pollyanna-ish, but I am always hopeful. But that doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the obstacles we have to climb. And the biggest issue for me right now is voting. Not enough people who care about preserving our democracy actually vote. I don't understand it. I get very upset and angry with people who say, well, I didn't feel like it, or it was kind of late, I had other things to do. It just outrages me. And for me, that has got to be a major focus. Like if we get the votes, we get people who care about democracy, that's how we save our democracy. And one last thing, I've always taken democracy for granted. I no longer do. I am very concerned about our democracy. It is fragile. It only has 3 legs holding it up: legislative, executive branch, and the judiciary. And right now, the judiciary is under attack. And if any one leg gets pulled out, we have lost our democracy. So I'm concerned, and I say this to say, stay hopeful, but also understand we cannot be bystanders. We cannot be bystanders. We must be upstanders.
That's really important. I couldn't agree more. There's an article in the most recent Harper's about the failure of the judicial system right now. And I think that's a serious issue we all have to address. And thank goodness there are judges like you at lower levels, so we're not among the gang of 6. One other question that is out here is specifically more about the criminal justice system. And someone is asking, what is one particular thing that you might think about as a person within your field as an impediment to justice, and how might we overcome that as part of the criminal justice?
So and let me just say, I don't call it a criminal justice system, Debbie. I call it a criminal legal system because we don't have justice. It's a work in progress,
Yeah.
But we don't have justice. And so I appreciate the question. I guess one of the things that stands out for me most is that this notion of judicial independence. So what is that? It just means that judges are not looking over their shoulders to what does the mob want me to do before making a decision. So picture yourself in a courtroom. The judge has listened to all the evidence, listened very carefully, but then the judge takes a break, takes a recess, and then says, if I make this decision, it's going to be controversial. And then I could lose my job because I could get not reelected, or I could get recalled. So I'm not going to do that. I think I'm going to just do something that's going to please people. When that happens, that's when we lose judicial independence and we've lost our judiciary. So I recommend in the book that one of the things we can do, and not just in California, but let me give California as an example. California Constitution has one sentence in it that says any elected officers can be recalled. That's it, one sentence. And that means they've lumped judges in with all elective officers. The mistake here is that judges are not politicians. Why? Well, politicians do what they make promises to their constituents to do what their constituents want. That's fine. That's what politicians do. Judges, the only promise they can make is to uphold the law. So I recommend that, for example, the California Constitution be amended to say, keep that line in there that all elected officials can be subject to recall, except that judges can be recalled only if they engage in malfeasance, if they neglect their duties, or if they've been convicted of serious crimes, meaning a judge cannot be recalled or removed for making a lawful decision, albeit controversial. And so you may think, oh, easy to say, amend the Constitution. California Constitution has been amended more than 200 times. This is doable, and it's doable in our lifetime. Those in other states, I saw someone weighed in from Hawaii, from Colorado. It's look at the Constitution, see if judges are subject to recall in your states. There are only 2 states that go along with this idea that recall should only be if a judge has misbehaved, and that's Georgia and Montana. Look at their constitutions, and you can see where those states who allow recalls should follow in their stead. So when we talk about our criminal legal system, there are many things we have. For example, I'll give a quick example: plea bargaining. 97% of all cases, criminal cases in the federal system and in the states, this whole country, 97% of criminal cases are resolved with plea bargains. 97%. So that means that there are a whole lot of people pleading guilty. And you may think, well, that's great. That because they're guilty, they're pleading. No. And indeed, many examples of many people who are innocent, who are proclaiming their innocence, but they still plead guilty. And there's a reason for that. I won't go into it, but there's a chapter in my book called The Art of the Plea Deal. Please read that and you'll understand what the problem is about coercive plea bargains and what we can do to change that in the chapter called The Fix.
So important. Thank you. Thank you so much. You are inspiration. I love the term upstander too, and the image of the gal Bree climbing up that pole. That's so wonderful. We are out of time. Unfortunately, we're going to have breakout groups now for people to talk about what they've just heard your comments on, and we'll give people a chance to chat a little bit more. And I do encourage people to look in the chat. There's some comments there about what we're doing as an organization with the Elders for Sound Democracy, getting more people involved in the election process and the voting and get out the vote work. So thank you again so much, Judge. We really appreciate your being with us today and hope you'll stay around, maybe join one of the chats for a little bit.
So
Thank you,
it's,
Debbie,
thank you.
so
And it's my
much.
pleasure to have been with you all. I don't know that I can stay around for the breakout session, but I do know this is being recorded so that I'm able to watch the rest of this. I do note in the chat, Nancy Goodban, who says, I know Kelly Turner. She's a friend from Merced, and I'm delighted. I'm just so delighted. And thank you, Amy Vosbrink, for letting me know that we're still in touch with one another. Thank you all, Terry, Jeff, Crystal, all of you, Debbie. Thank you for being upstanders, and I encourage everyone, activism, let it be your rent for being on this planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Debbie, and thank you, LaDoris. I just am so moved by what you said and who you are and your passion. And you know what I've said over and over again to all of you. You all have to be here, all of us elders, to hear LaDoris and to experience her. And now you know why. I so appreciate it. Well, now you get a chance to talk with one another about what you heard and what I can just imagine your breakout sessions. So we're going to have breakout sessions for about 10 minutes. We're going to have 4 people in each breakout session. And here are the 2 questions for the breakout sessions. How does LaDoris inspire you in your activism? What keeps you continuing to work for change? And those questions will be in the chat. So enjoy your breakout sessions for 10 minutes and come back because we're going to have our youth speaker right after the break. Thank you. Well, welcome back. I wish I was in each one of your breakout rooms. I just would love to have heard your conversations. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a break, but before we do that, I would like you to put in the chat one takeaway you had from your breakout session. And then during the break, you can look at the chat and see what people came away with from their breakout sessions. So right now, we've been a lot using our head and listening and talking. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and it's going to be a dance video. So we want you to get up and dance and move and use your muscles and come back in 5 minutes, please, because you won't want to miss Atara Saunders, our youth advocate. She'll be speaking next. So we'll play the music and the video, and get up.
Sometimes I'm right and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my songs. Butcher, the baker, the drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in.
Well, sometimes I'm right and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song. The butcher, the banker, the drummer, and then it makes no difference what group I'm in. 'Cause I am everyday people. There
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the second half of the program. It's so good to dance and to move. You know, it's probably the universal activity that is common to all people. You know, we wear different clothes, we eat different foods, and we pray to different gods. But I bet everybody on the planet dances at some point in their lives, and it connects us all, and we feel connected when we dance. We're going to start the second half of the program with another guest speaker, and this person is far from being an older, but she's quite close to having elder thinking. And so I'm going to now ask Lynn Isa, who's the president of EAN, to introduce our next speaker. Lynn, over to you.
Hey, hi Jeff, thank you so much. Hi everybody, it's so nice to be here and see all these faces. And I am most delighted to introduce Atara Sanders to you today. Atara is a third-year student at Drexel University here in Philadelphia, where I live. And so I got to meet her this past April. She focuses on global studies, economics, and public health. Atara is also the founder and co-president of Drexel University's Dayenu Circle, a movement of American Jews confronting climate crises with spiritual audacity and bold action, which I love those words. And that's how we found ourselves participating in an interfaith street Seder against the climate pharaohs this past April in front of the Chase Bank in Wayne, Pennsylvania, right out a suburb outside of Philadelphia. Actually, in that action, Atara was the younger and I was the elder, so we got to deliver matzah to the people in the bank. Atara has been organizing for climate justice since her junior year of high school. And this past April, she collaborated with the Earthquaker Action Team, the Shalom Center, and Elders Action Network for a series of actions targeting fossil fuel finance. In her free time, Atara loves to read, bake, and explore new places. So today she's joining our gathering from Madrid, where she is studying for her fall semester. She looks really happy about that. And if you have questions as Atara speaks, please put them into the chat and we'll get to them after her talk. Hi, Atara. Hi.
Hi, Lynn. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. It's great to see you. And thank you, everyone at Elders Action Network, for having me. I'm really happy to be here talking with you all. So as Lynn said, my name is Atara Sanders. I'm a third-year student at Drexel University in Philadelphia, studying global studies, economics, and public health. And I have a concentration in health and sustainability. I am not in Philadelphia right now, right? I'm actually in Madrid studying abroad for the fall semester. And it's very beautiful here. And so very happy to spending some time here. But I'm so honored to be joining you here today, along with Judge Cordell, the other amazing activists in our midst. I've been involved in climate organizing since 2019 when I was a junior in high school. My involvement in climate justice work began with school strikes for climate. I organized students from my high school to thousands of other youths from the Philadelphia area at Philadelphia City Hall for days of fighting for change. I eventually helped to plan a strike in December of 2019. My climate organizing, like many things, was halted by the pandemic. But while at Drexel, I was connected with the group Dayenu. Dayenu is the Jewish call to climate action, a group organizing Jews specifically to fight for change in our communities and in the world. I've been an active member of the Jewish community my entire life. And in school, I'm the current vice president of our Jewish Student Association. So I saw organizing with Dayenu as a way to help bring my community at school into the fight for climate justice. I've been so lucky to organize with amazing partners like Lynn Isa from Elders Action Network, rabbis from the Shalom Center, and incredible organizers from Earthquaker Action Team to tackle fossil fuel finance, the grimy underbelly funding our planet's destruction. I've also been privileged enough to grow up in a family where going to protests and fighting for what is right is the norm. The elders in my family have inspired my activism and the person that I am today. When I was in elementary school, our local hospital was set to merge with a Catholic hospital and would stop providing abortions. This has severely impacted access to reproductive care in my community and beyond. My grandmother, my bubby, started a movement called Stop the Abington Hospital Merger, utilizing a Facebook page, a pin making machine, a petition, and sheer willpower. She worked with our community to stop the merger and preserve the reproductive rights of people in and around our community. I learned when I was 10 years old from my own grandmother the power of a voice who dares to speak up. I thought of her when I created an Instagram page advertising the first international school strike for climate in March of 2019 to students of my high school. And I continue to consult her and listen to her advice in those difficult moments where I'm just not sure what the right move is. When I began my climate activism journey, I was told by countless elders that it is up to my generation to fix the problems that their generation caused. Since my reintroduction to organizing in college, I've experienced an incredibly meaningful tone shift. Some of the strongest advocates for climate justice that I know are more than 3 or 4 times my age. And this just warms my heart. No one group can do anything alone. By creating these cross-generational coalitions, we bring such incredible strength to our movements. Looking at my screen today fills me with such joy. I see countless elders who are taking that stand and fighting for the world that they love, the world of their children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, neighbors, and more. I know that taking action can be incredibly daunting. Remember, all activists began as someone scared to do something, scared to be the person who stands up to solve that problem. I urge you all to be that person who pushes down their fear, work to create those cross-generational ties, stand up for those who will feel the burden of climate catastrophe. I urge you to explore local climate groups in your area and create organizational collaborations. There are already some incredible groups taking action, and they just need more people to care. Incredible groups like Elders Climate Action. Thank you to everyone who's here, taking that first step to create lasting systemic change. I hope that today inspires you to continue your activism. So thank you so much for having me. It's been such a privilege to talk to you all.
Tara, thank you so much. It's so nice to see you again and to hear your words and your eloquence in sharing your story and the impact that your own grandmother had on you. And of course, she sounds like she was an amazing woman and an amazing role model. And weren't you fortunate? So I want to take a few questions here. And well, one that I'd like to ask you just to start off with, I love that you welcome many generations to work together. What do you think we each bring to this pot of good trouble, of making good trouble?
Totally. So that's a good question. When I began my climate activism when I was in high school, it was really with a bunch of teenagers, right? And it was a really cool environment to be in because we're all so passionate about this issue, which everyone here is so passionate. But I realize now with some hindsight that having people who really have those applicable skills, who know what they're doing, who help support and uplift younger participants in that world is really, really useful. It's really amazing to have those helping hands who can help you get your voice, help you communicate exactly what you want to say to the most amount of people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So really supporting and uplifting all members of youths, really all generations. But I think that's really one of the biggest things. It's just we all need to realize that we all bring something to the table, and just working together is the best thing that we can do to really help solve this crisis.
Thank you. Thank you. I obviously I agree with you. I think it's great in the places that I've been able to work with younger people. Here's a question from Leslie. What is your greatest ask for those in your grandparents' generation as you look at your future?
Totally. Well, I would say one of my biggest asks is just not to give up on hope. As I said a little bit earlier, when I first started organizing, there was just every older person I met said to me like, oh, it's really up to your generation to do something, and I would like smile and nod, right? Because like, what am I going to say to that? But like seeing you all here today really shows that like not everyone believes that, and you guys are really doing what will make change, is just showing up and like taking that step. So not just sitting down and letting the climate crisis take us all, right? Just showing up is really the biggest thing.
Thank you. Showing up is the biggest thing. Well, that's always true, isn't it? And that's what Judge LaDoris is saying, right? Stand up, get up. You know.
So exactly.
But I also want to say, Amy Vosbrink, one of our board members, says one of her favorite protest signs that she's carried as an elder is "Now you've pissed off grandma."
I love that one.
It's not only showing up, it's really showing up with her anger and saying, we want to really do something about it. So thanks,
Completely.
Amy, for sharing that. There was a couple of questions about what works and what doesn't work about our generation working with youngers, or our generation's approach to activism with youth. If you have anything to say about that. You know,
Totally.
The good and the bad. I'm sure there's some things that we've got, oh, don't do that.
Personally, I've only had positive experiences working like intergenerationally, but I know that a lot of times people come on to like in organizing or just come on to like different situations with different perspectives on how to tackle them. And so I would say just by like sitting in those differences and understanding them and using them for your benefit, right? Those would really be the number one way to approach that. I know that like a lot of times, right, like we're driven by different parts of this big issue. So just by like utilizing those differences to like uplift our message, I think there's only like positive potential there.
Great, thank you. I really appreciate what you say about seeing what the differences are and allowing the differences to raise us up rather than to become a disturbance or a challenge for us that's insurmountable. So thank you so much for being here. I'd love to ask more questions, but we need to go on. I've got my message, and good luck in Madrid.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really a pleasure.
Can't wait until you get back to Philadelphia and we'll have to catch up. Okay,
Yes,
back to Jeff, Terry.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Atara, and the best of luck with your studies in Madrid. Our next message is coming from a member of the animal kingdom. And okay. Willie, calm down. You are up next. You're going to see your video. Yeah, okay. Whew. I first met Willie in 2000. My wife and I went to the Olympic Games in Sydney, and Willie had a TV program every night on the TV, and he and his friends would talk about all the fun things that happened during the Olympics. He became a national hit. Everybody watched it, and it was really entertaining. Well, since then, Willie and a lot of his family have suffered from the great fires that they've had in Australia and destroyed a lot of their habitats. And so he's devoted the rest of his life to, the rest of his life to working on climate change. And he's made a video, and we have the video from him today. Okay, so Crystal, put on your video. Okay, Willie, it's coming. Yeah, it's coming. Well, just watch.
Yo, listen up. This is your home. It's the only one you got. This place is pretty, but you can't live there. You can't even get there. So I repeat, this is your home. It's the only one you got. Cherish it, protect it. It's the only one you're gonna get. These guys, they're your neighbors. They ain't going away. They ain't leaving. You have to get along with them. So you have to learn to share. You have to get along. You have to learn to get along because they are your neighbors. They're not going away. Okay, all this stuff, the animals, the waters, the sky, the ground, the bugs, the fish, the tacos, the people, they're all connected. Everything is connected. They all depend on one another. If you ignore that, you're doomed. Repeat, doomed, okay? So listen up. It's all one. Not two worlds, not three, one. Just one. So get it in gear. Remember, all is one, okay? Hit it.
Okay, Willie, that is very good and a very important message. We are one. Do you want to stay around and watch the rest of the program? No? Why not? Oh, you're going to see your incarcerated friends at the San Francisco Zoo? Oh, well, that is important. Okay, drive safely. Bye, Willie. Willie has a Wombat mobile. It's fully electric and zero emissions. And so he's off to the zoo to see his friends. Okay, after that little interlude, the stuffed animal belongs to my grandson. We now come to the second half of the program, and the second word in our name and in our title is Action, Elders Action Network. And so you're going to hear now from 4 groups in the EAN who they're going to describe what action they are taking in their groups. Each one will be about 5 minutes and each one will have a short video. So we're going to start with ESJ. That stands for Elders for Social Justice. And I'm going to ask Lane Tripp to introduce this group. Lane?
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Willie. Well, Elders for Social Justice is built around learning and action. That's why our meetings each month are set up the way they are. One meeting for community learning and one for action. What we find is that the more we learn from each other and from the wealth of outside resources, the more we can act to join with others to make our world a more just place. Let me give you some examples. Last year, we looked at racism in policing. We learned about the history of policing in this country and why it has baked in racism. We learned from each other about the actions and solutions that are going on in our members' particular communities all over the country. And those examples sparked actions we could bring home to our own communities. At the end of last year, we were inspired by George Monbiot's writing about capitalism and how it has been and is a force of destruction. We began looking at issues in injustice from a whole new perspective. We learned how money is fueling all of the injustices around us and how we can use our money, our choices, to create more justice. The Follow the Money campaign grew out of that, but I'll let Lynn tell you about that. Also out of that, we developed and hosted a webinar with George Monbiot for the whole EAN community and beyond. It was an exciting conversation. Right now, we're preparing to focus on another topic in our meetings, and our process shows you who we are. Some of our members proposed we look at environmental injustice, food injustice, and censorship. So each proposer researched how we can learn more about the topic, how we can take action to make more justice in that area. Each presented to the whole group at our last meeting, and the group decided, and that was just yesterday. So if you're interested or passionate about any of these issues, but especially about censorship, register for our October community learning meeting. All of our members are people who love to learn and want to do more about the injustices around us. If that's you, we welcome you to come join the conversation. Try out our process. We sure look forward to what you will bring. Now, we're going to have a video from Lynn Iser and then one from me.
At my age, I depend on my retirement savings to provide a secure future for me and hopefully something for my children and my granddaughter. But it doesn't make sense for me to be concerned about leaving money to those that I love if our world, our environment, and the social systems that provide stability for all of us are being threatened. So Elders for Social Justice is embarking on an ambitious new campaign. We call it Follow the Money, where we're learning how we can demand that our investment companies provide climate-safe products and a more secure future for our communities. We're not doing this by ourselves, oh no. We're joining forces with other groups focused on investments, like Fix Our Funds and Stop the Money Pipeline. And we're learning that the investment industry is already feeling the power of our collective actions. Did you know that elders are the largest demographic of investors? Let's use our resources to make a better future and be sure that our investments align with our values. So sign up for our webinars coming in October and November. Learn more at our Follow the Money webpage. And if you're interested in this work, please get in touch with us. You can help make this a successful campaign and change the future. Thanks for listening.
Okay, Lane, we have the second video? Yeah.
I think the essence of Elders Action Network is connection with people, with ideas, with action. In the last 2 years, I've connected with a lot of communities in EAN, like getting out the vote with Elders for a Sound Democracy, becoming an investor activist in the Follow the Money campaign. With a book group, I have read books I wouldn't have read otherwise, which have totally changed my understanding of the climate crisis and what it means to live sustainably. Every 2 weeks, when I can, I join in the book group discussion with a big, wonderful, funny group of thoughtful people. And what I'm learning in this community, in EAN, has propelled me to connect with my community here in New Orleans, more than I have in 45 years of living here as an artist and as a lawyer. I've started working with coalitions of folks here to bring more justice to our community, to change how we try to keep people safe beyond traditional policing, to be a better village, especially to our Katrina babies. And I live in Cancer Alley. I'm connecting with people fighting that pollution and injustice. What brings me the most joy is that I'm connecting with local groups who are creating community gardens and doing urban farming here. And I'm working with a group on a pilot program to present to our city council to support local farming. We all gotta eat. I think all action comes in and from connection in community. And EAN is a splendid community. I'm excited by what I'm learning. I'm excited by what I'm doing. And I'm excited about the connections that lie ahead.
Thank you, Lane. Thank you very much. Our second group is called ECA, and this is the Elders Climate Action Group, probably the largest group in EAN. And to tell you about it is Leslie Wan. Leslie?
Yes. Welcome. This is inspiring. Let me speak briefly about Elders Climate Action. ECA started in 2014. At the end of 2015, we had all of 250 members, and today we've got over 14,000. We offer a variety of ways you can engage in climate action. You pick what feels best for you. Some of our volunteers work on our inspiring newsletter, action bulletins, on our website. Others focus on monthly national calls with outside speakers, webinars, and other events. Still, some help us identify the policies that will protect our world from catastrophic climate change. And throughout, we collaborate with other climate organizations and across the generations so we can maximize our impact together. We invite our members to form chapters, and each chapter creates its own focus. Our Ann Arbor chapter got the city to begin a composting program. Our Massachusetts chapter helped get the state to agree to reduce emissions to net zero by 2050. And our Twin Cities chapter is launching a series of programs through the University of Minnesota to educate elders on how they can take climate action. In all of this, we have the dedicated and talented support of our Director of Operations, Jen Chandler. It's she who makes it possible for all of us elder volunteers to make a difference. So I really want to send out a thanks to Jen. I have to say, being part of ECA, it gives me focus and purpose. And that gives me peace and hope in these difficult times. It keeps hauling me out of depression. I think that Michelle has put the website link in the chat box for Elders Climate Action. And if you go to the ECA.org website, you can click the Join Us button on the homepage and learn more about how we're coming together to address climate change while there is still time to protect our children, grandchildren, and all life. So now let's hear from some of our ECA members.
I look at us elders as stored batteries. We have years of experience. We have plenty of coverage all over the country, and we've been getting ready for all of these years to be able to do something and release our energy and help fix the climate mess that we've created over the past 200 years.
All along the way, I found the people that I've met and worked with to be caring, concerned, very knowledgeable, and wonderful to work with. I've been inspired to become a regular advocate for climate legislation locally, statewide, and nationally. And I've attended marches and hearings and things like that, as well as joining our local city environmental quality committee and starting a climate justice committee at our local UU church.
I learned the different ways I could participate, like tabling to talk directly to the public, helping with our chapter's newsletter, meeting and contacting legislators, and learning all things environmental in our chapter's monthly educational sessions. I joined the policy team and participated in letter sign-on campaigns and helped start the 100% Clean Energy Initiative and roll it out to the other chapters. Seeing the climate bill signed into law was of huge importance to me. I've been doing climate advocacy for several years with various groups and know it was due in large part to the collective efforts of the people engaged in all these environmental groups. We've done our world proud.
We have had some great successes in transportation and energy, environmental justice, environmental health, natural solutions, plastics, composting, and pretty much anything you can think of as an area of concern. So join us. We have chapters all over the U.S., individual and plus individual opportunities. As elders, our work is for our children, grandchildren, and future generations.
So please join me and join the wonderful people in Elders Climate Action who are working together, bringing different talents, different abilities and energies to help make this a wonderful world for our children, to help extend the bounty that we have enjoyed throughout our life.
Thank you, Lane. Got it. Okay. I was just thinking, Lane, if you wanted to wrap it up. Or should we just move on? Okay, let's move on to the next group. The next group is ERL, which is Elders for Regenerative Living. And Jim Burke will be telling you about that.
I'm Jim Burke, and I'm a member of the Elders for Regenerative Living Action Group. We are attempting to answer the question, how do elders act more regeneratively so that our grandchildren and future generations have a habitable planet and society that support their growth as human beings? As one of our projects, we are currently designing and prototyping a regenerative elder project that focuses on the unique gifts that elders can bring to the internal and external regenerative transformation that Paul Hawkins is calling forth in his book, Regeneration. We are also involved in other activities. Let's hear from members of our team. I'm Jim Burke, and I'm a member of the Elders for Regenerative Living team. In the last year, our focus has moved from sustainable to regenerative living. Renowned environmentalist Paul Hawkins, in his most recent book, Regeneration, Ending the Climate Crisis in One Generation, advises us that regeneration means putting life at the center of every action and decision. As Jane Goodall said in the introduction to the book, we are part of the natural world, and there seems to have been a disconnect between our clever brains and the love and compassion that poetically we see in the human heart. She goes on to say, we have many self-inflicted problems to work out, which are all interconnected, and we need to understand and solve in an integrated way. Paul Hawkins, at the end of his book, shares with us that the most asked question about the climate crisis is what to do. He goes on to say that we should push the power of decision-making out to the periphery and away from the center, then ask people to talk to one another and to take responsibility. That's what works. We are what works. Today, my fellow team members, Robert, Shirley, and Libby, are going to talk with you about living regeneratively. I want to thank you for being with us here today. Lastly, I believe you have an important choice to make, and that choice is going to affect your children, their children, and all future generations. Will you choose to live more regeneratively?
This is an exciting time with so many things we can do as regenerative elders collaborating to eliminate fossil fuels. I was one of 6 kids in a small house with a natural gas water heater, stove, and wall furnace, and even a portable natural gas space heater. UCLA studies have shown that children growing up in such homes average a 42% greater chance as adults of poorer health. In my family, it was 100%, as all 6 siblings had suffered from asthma and bronchitis. In my 70s, there are countless emission-free, clean, all-electric alternatives for heating water and food and heating and cooling buildings. Both the evolving power grid and countless new electric alternatives make them available for all. As regenerative elders, let's electrify everything.
Last year, Paul Hawkins spoke to our network about regeneration. That stimulated a whole new energy around how now do we live when just sustaining the earth is not enough. What do we want to learn about and promote that is rejuvenating and revitalizing in addition to ourselves? We look to solutions rather than problems, be proactive to update and remake. We consider the needs of the earth in our choices. We look differently at our habits and thought and behavior. We especially look to new technologies like renewable energies for home, business, and transportation. We looked at where we can help others make a difference in their own lives and have fun doing it, like single-use plastics, because detrimental to the earth at every point of its life cycle, from extraction to landfill where it gives off methane, a highly potent greenhouse gas. And now research tells us that microplastics are contaminating our water and endangering human health. It's exciting to be part of these change movements so we can tell our grandchildren that we did respond when we found out our very lives were and the planet were in jeopardy.
Choose active mobility and public transport. In other words, walk, ride your bike, or take the bus. Give up your car if possible, but if you have to have a car and you need a new one, buy electric. Encourage your bank to divest from fossil fuel projects and do business with alternative or cooperative financial systems that are investing in a healthy planet. And remember to reuse, recreate, redesign, repurpose, recycle, repair, and when possible, refuse. Please join us as we work together to regenerate and recreate what it means to be an elder and how to live each day bringing new life back to Mother Earth.
Wow, thanks, Jim. Thanks very much. Now for our fourth group, and this is ESD, which is Elders for Sound Democracy. And I want to introduce our founder, John Sorensen.
Thank you, Jeff. You know, Sound Democracy, our focus right now is getting out the vote. And as Terry said earlier, we're really taking on social media. And following Paul Dreyfus and Sherry Stark's guidance on that, we really are innovating with video and graphic arts. So as we describe what we're doing here, we're going to demonstrate our uses of that. So right at that point, please play our spiel.
Fellow elders, freedom to vote is fundamental to a sound democracy. Those rights to be fairly represented are under attack. As a nation, we have lost our civic values. Deep polarization is hurting everyone, and big money is corrupting legislative action. Recognizing these threats, we launched Elders for Sound Democracy in January 2021, building on the experience we gained during the 2020 election campaign. We have steadily grown since then. This election year, we are focusing on countering voter suppression, which is primarily directed at the young, minorities, urban, and frontline communities.
Elders for Sound Democracy is waging strategic voting rights campaigns in 5 key battleground states where voter suppression is most severe. We have several projects underway to help those populations get registered and have their votes counted. Linda Warner from Indianapolis leads our Wisconsin team, which is focusing on marginalized and younger voters in Milwaukee and Madison. Joff Baker from California's Pacific Coast leads our Georgia team, providing get-out-the-vote information to residents of low-cost housing in the greater Atlanta area. Therese Flaherty of Philadelphia leads the Pennsylvania team, which is supplying voter information to the state's churches in the form of weekly bulletin inserts. John from California's Sierra Mountains leads the Arizona team, which is supplying public service announcements to community radio stations. And Jane Mulholland from Houston leads the Texas team that originated the strategy of using social media with this project. They're also sharing PSAs and how to vote flyers with Texas progressive congregations to use in their weekly bulletins. In supporting all this voting rights work, our social media project has 2 parts. We're creating compelling short videos and graphic posts or memes promoting the Get Out the Vote message. And then we're using YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to share these pro-voting messages. Some communicate vital instructions on how to register and vote, sharing national resources and hotlines. Others focus on rules for specific states, such as these 2 targeted at Texas. And others focus on the various reasons this election is so important to us elders, our democracy, and our planet. Here's one about voting to protect women's rights, and the one on the right is about voting to save our environment. We've also been making selfie videos to remind people of all the reasons voting in this election is so crucial. This is the playlist of them we have available on our YouTube channel. We'll click here and watch one.
It's Michael with Elders for Sound Democracy. One of the reasons I'm going to be voting on November the 8th is to support public education. I'm really ticked off at all the attacks that teachers and school administrators and school boards are confronting by folks who basically never cracked a book when it comes to understanding what it takes to educate young people. And I know something about this. I've looked into the curriculum of schools of education. And if you get better than a B+ average at just about any school of education, you're going to have worked your tail off to get that professional degree. So you're deserving of respect, and I'm looking to vote for politicians that understand the importance of public education.
This is a fun, creative project, learning new skills that don't come easily to us but are very empowering. And this is an arena where our youth can help us. So it's a great opportunity for intergenerational collaboration as well. Come to one of our media workshops and invite any younger family members or colleagues who might want to help. And please check out our state team projects. They really need all your help these next few weeks, and there's something for everyone, even if it's just an hour a week. Thanks.
Last year at this gathering, the activist poet Drew Dillinger asked us questions, two of which were, did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? And what did you do once you knew? Yes, we know they're trying to steal our democracy. We cannot let them do that. With 6 weeks till the election, we're in our final push. Your great-great-grandchildren are asking for your support in this critical endeavor.
Vote. Back to you, Jeff.
Thanks, John. Yes, vote. That is the one action that every person can take. Thanks, John, and thanks to all the presenters. And thanks to all the people that put those wonderful videos together. They're a real resource that I'm sure we can use in the future. You will now have an opportunity to talk in small groups, in breakout groups, about what you heard and about what interests you. There are 3 questions that I've just posted in the chat. Which action speaks to you? What have you heard that inspires you to act? And what do you need from EAN to continue to be involved? And the breakout groups will last for 10 minutes. Okay, Crystal, are we ready to go? There we go. So click on join and you'll go into the breakout room. Okay, welcome back, everybody. How were your breakout groups? How was the conversation?
Too
Just
short.
A couple of people, give us 2 phrases.
It was challenging in a good way.
Okay. One more?
It was very good. And what I shared with the group, since I've been a member for about a year now, is I find all of the groups interesting, and I know I can't do all of them. So I asked the others, how did you pick which group to be the most active with? Because we really should focus at this time of our lives, I think. I can't do more than one group. So I already do the book club. That's absolutely a must. So I can do one other thing with that. And I think it's going to be regenerative living for me. And a couple of the others in my small group, 2 are doing social justice. 1 is doing democracy. So it was really helpful to me for us to talk about how we made our decisions with our focuses.
Oh, great, Alita. Thank you. That's good. So now the opportunity comes for EAN to respond to you. So the idea for this next session is for us to give you some answers on how you can be involved, how you can choose your interest, and how you go about doing that. And so Diana is going to talk about that. Diana Shoemaker. And here she is.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, we've had the opportunity today to hear from so many inspiring individuals, elders who are acting now. We're grateful for all of you who are on the call today, who are actively working to make a difference in your families and the communities, the state level and national level. If you're on this call and still looking for ways to get involved, I wanted to let you know how to do so. Each month, we offer an introduction to Elders Action Network called Welcome to EAN. This is a great way to learn more about us and to share your interests and passions in a small group setting. Our next session is coming up on October 7th from 10 a.m. It's 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and you can register for that on our website. For those of you who are beginning your journey as an elder activist, we offer numerous workshops and webinars to help you learn more about specific issues. We also offer workshops that can provide education and training as you explore what role you can play in joining this exciting movement of committed elders. Be sure to watch for some of our upcoming advocacy training programs like Pachamama's Game Changer Initiative and Elders Who Lead. You'll find all of EAN's upcoming activities on our monthly newsletter. If you've been inspired and are ready to jump in and join one of our 4 action teams we've heard from today, you'll want to look for the follow-up email that's being sent following this annual gathering. In there will be the links with information on each of the teams. And you can learn more about the action teams on our website at eldersaction.org. These are challenging times with critical issues we're facing right now. And in order to create the change we desire, we're going to need all elders acting now. And we need you. Thank you.
Thanks, Diana. Thank you. Okay, so here comes the rub. We're all going to take an action now in 3 minutes. And we're all going to send a message to the Wall Street CEOs, asking them to fund clean energy and not fossil fuels. So if you look in the chat, there is a URL. I just want to make sure it's there. It's not there yet. Michelle, can you put it in the chat?
Yeah, yes, it is in there.
It is?
Yep. I'll put it in again.
Okay. Huh, I don't see it. Okay, let me just
No, it
There
just
it
popped
is.
up.
It's up. It's there.
It's there.
there it is. It's come. Great. Okay, so I'm going to talk through the 4 steps you take, but don't do it until I say go at the end. Okay, so the 4 steps are: you click on the URL in the chat. This will open your browser and the website called Stop the Money Pipeline, which is on the screen now. Do not close your Zoom window. Just leave it there behind the other things. Then on this website, fill in your name and email. Then you have to scroll down and click on send your email. Everyone got it? Any questions? Okay, go. Then when you've done it, unmute yourself and put up your hand and say, done it.
Done it.
I did it.
Done it. Done it. Done it.
All right.
Done
it
great.
together. Done it.
Great. Now that makes a difference. I work a lot with my city council people in environmental stuff. And when I talk to the council members, and there's 130,000 citizens in Sunnyvale, if they get 10 messages on the same subject, they realize it's really important to the whole community. Just 10 out of 150,000. So that's how few people actually write to the legislatures. So these CEOs will now get a message about divesting from fossil fuels and funding renewable energy, which we really need. Okay, we're doing fine on the time, Terry, and we're bang on for
We're doing wonderfully,
statement.
Jeff.
We've done it.
Oh, I'm seeing people still come in with their thumbs up. Done it.
Done it. That's it. Done it.
So great. So if we can pull Jeff and myself up on the screen, that would help. And I just got to say, I am so pleased with this community and so impressed. It's just been a wonderful experience to see you all together and hear from you and to see what you've done and the videos you presented. And when you were in the breakout session, several of us stayed out that had been in the planning team. And I think I'm going to say it for everyone. Thank you, Judge LaDoris Cordell. You were so articulate and so inspirational, and you talked to us, and it meant a lot to us, and I so appreciate what she said. And then again, in the second half with Tara Saunders, our youth advocate, she just got into Madrid about a week ago, and for her to come on and to give her talk and to communicate to us elders and say how important we are and that we need to work together was such a good message. And I know Robert, my husband, works with younger people a lot more than I do, and he says they're so sharp and so know what they're doing. And Atara is certainly an example of that, and we thank her for her contribution here. And Jeff, you want to say something about our team at all?
Just reflecting on, we're probably in the top 1% of the wealthiest people in the world, all of them on this call. And for us to be doing this work, is just so important and such a gift to the whole planet and all future generations that I feel very grateful for being part of the group.
Yeah, and I want to just thank the whole team, the technical team and the planning team. We started this about 6 months ago, and we're all volunteers, and we have grandchildren and children and partners to support and help out. And so for all of us to do that, I thank you very much for all the work that you do. And as LaDoris said at the end, onward. Onward we go together. And we're going to leave up the Zoom meeting. So at the end of this is it. We're finished. If you all want to stay on and we can just chat and talk with each other, please feel free to stay on. But thank you everyone for being here. We just deeply appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Can we all unmute now and make
Yes.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Inspirational.
Yay.
Awesome. Great job. Good
I
to
too
see
am
your
proud to be part of this
faces.
organization.
Thank
you.
Thanks for being there.
Really
Well,
great.
it's nice to see Penny and her husband together. We love it.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Upstanding, everybody. Upstanding. Yeah.
Upstanding. And
Let's go make
Amy,
some
thank you
trouble.
for staying for all of it. I wasn't sure if you were going to be able to.
Yo, I worked it around my work. I'm so glad I was able to do that. I go back. This is my